Hello, students. Today we have a wonderful guest. I'll let her introduce herself, but she is an alumna from our one of our programs. She graduated with a of General Studies, um, and she is delighted, as well as I am delighted to have her here today. So I will let you introduce yourself if you'd like to.
Sure. Thank you. I'm Dr. Kimberly Merenda, and I teach at TW, but my main job is that I'm the managing editor for TW's book series. Um, I got my seems like a long time ago. I guess I want to start by saying that if not for the Bachelor of General Studies, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have been able to go on to get the degrees that enabled me to have the job I have now. Um, I chose the Bachelor of General Studies. I went back to, I stopped going to college like a lot of people do. I dropped out of college. I had children. Then I became a single mother, and I needed a degree. My kids and we were really poor. Um, I was trying to work, as many, part-time jobs as I could. I wasn't earning enough to support my children. So I decided to go back to college, and it was scary because I had been out of college for a long time, and I needed a degree. I was scared. I thought, how am I going to go to college? I lived about an hour from Denton. So I thought, and when you're poor, you don't have reliable transportation. So I thought, I need to get this degree because I want to, give my children and myself a better life. So how am I going to do this when everything seemed impossible? It seemed impossible. Um, then I heard about the Bachelor of General Studies degree, and it seemed like the answer to so many of the challenges that I had. I could take it online. I didn't have to drive to Denton. And by taking online classes, I could work around my own schedule. So those were the first main reasons, and they were purely practical. I thought I didn't really even know. I guess I thought I would get a bachelor's degree so that I would, been able to teach or
Mm.
go into healthcare. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I came into college, a single mother living in poverty. And what the Bachelor of General Studies did for me, not knowing what I wanted to do, as far as degrees or professions, it gave me the options of I kind of when I first did it, I picked two concentrations and I kind of picked them randomly. I picked English and sociology, and I thought, oh, that'll be okay. But what it gave me, I finally eventually picked three. I picked women's studies because I took a core class in women's studies, and I thought, oh, I really, really like this. And so I met with my advisor, and she said, yes, you can add a third area of concentration. So what it did for me is it guided me, going to college, being so afraid that I was older. I thought I was dumb. I was poor. I felt like a loser. I didn't think I could do it. But TWU, when I had my concentrations, it gave me areas of interest. And suddenly I was really interested in literature from English. Sociology was fascinating. Women's studies, I loved it. So I was not only getting the degree that I needed, but I was learning things and I was learning how to think, and I could take these classes that really captured my attention. So I guess it guided me. I started just thinking I was going to get a bachelor's degree in one thing, whatever I could, just to have that degree on paper. But it changed my whole life. I was able you know, to take care of my children. I was able to work and I was able to work toward my degree. And I also, having the three concentrations, it gave me ideas. And next thing I know, I wanted to stay in academia. I really liked TW. I mean, it sounds like I'm just saying that, but I really liked it. I mean, I loved these classes. I was succeeding. I went in there so scared. The first, you meet, you read the syllabus. I didn't even know what a syllabus or a rubric. I didn't know any of these things. But when I started learning it, I was succeeding in something in my life and feeling like a failure. All of a sudden, I was getting good grades. I was getting good feedback. I was meeting, even though it was, you would, it was online, but we had a really tight-knit community in classes. I would meet people that I liked who are also pursuing a BGS degree, and we would take the same classes and we would talk afterward. And it went from just something that going to college, something I was afraid to do and didn't know how I was going to do and thought it was just a means to some kind of end, to it being the means itself. It was really great. It was really a great experience, and I wouldn't be Dr. Kimberly Merenda if not for the Bachelor of General Studies, which gave me definitely not only a foot in the door, a couple feet in the door. I was through that door, and then I went on to, learning the areas that I liked. Went and got a master's in English, a master's in women's studies, and then I went ahead and got my PhD.
Mm.
And yeah, and it was, my kids were little and they saw their mom going to school, going to college, working hard. They saw me crying. Sometimes classes will make you cry, sometimes the pressure, because I don't want to make it seem that it was easy. It's hard work. It's hard and it's stressful and it's hectic. And they saw me and they were do this and they saw me succeed. They saw me, just, cry happy tears when I would get a great grades and I'd be on the dean's list. And all three of my kids were inspired to go to college too. And so I kind of think of me getting this Bachelor of General Studies and moving on from there as also influencing my children and their friends. And it's kind of like a chain in a good way.
That is beautiful. I'll share a little bit about myself. I'm a first generation college student, and I didn't have any role models really in terms of um, getting into college and how to succeed in college. I think we all hear stories or social media or media tells us one thing, right? And then we sometimes experience
Mhm.
another set of experiences. And for me, as a first generation college student, first and foremost, I had no idea the differences between public and private. I ended up going to a private university not knowing, and my student loans showed me what, what the
Mhm.
differences are. But to kind of have similarities. I worked throughout university life. I had a part-time job, which was, 30 to 35 hours a week. I
Mhm.
also worked as an RA, residential assistant in a university housing to get free room free room, not board, but free room. So, I was trying to make everything meet. And
Mhm.
for me, going to college was really just about earning a degree. I was pre-med first, but that didn't work out. I found out my first semester as my grade in biology 101 wasn't spectacular. But really, I was going to earn my bachelor's so that I could provide for my mom and dad. I
Mhm.
could provide more for the family. And I I've always been a good student, but I really it's weird. Like I knew I was going to go to college to learn, but the end goal was more of what I sought for.
Mhm.
And like you're right, you're in school, you're taking classes, hopefully classes that you want to take
Mhm.
beyond the core, and your mind opens up
Right.
and you get to experience things that you didn't know that you're going to experience, have an inclusion of more knowledge, and get to know not only about the field, but how it could be replicated to the real world.
Yes.
And I found that fascinating. And that too pushed me to want to go to graduate school and eventually earn my doctorate.
Mhm.
And it all started out with realizing what an undergraduate degree was just not the end goal, but acquiring knowledge to then, go beyond baseline in terms of what you can do for yourself, but also for your career ambitions. Um,
Right.
and I look at our students, and I've spoken to many of them, and many of them are career minded, which is perfectly fine. But many of them also say that they've learned things that um, they weren't anticipating, which is
Mm-hmm.
wonderful that your experience is very much as our current students in our programs, which is marvelous. So my follow-up question to you is, what I say push, but that's not really what got you thinking to go to graduate school after graduating with your BGS degree?
I I I discovered, it sounds like it sounds like a cliche, but I kind of found myself in academia, and it was an environment where I was thriving, and I had never succeeded at anything else in my life. I mean, as a mother, I have wonderful children, but everything else, I was working these minimum wage jobs, and in Texas, when you're poor, you don't get treated very well. People think it's your fault. You deserved everything. You somehow brought this all on yourself. And so I'd internalized all that. And so when I was succeeding in academia and I had made mentors, I had found mentors who encouraged me and told me that you could do this. You're a person that you're going to enjoy. You're going to thrive in grad school. You're going to love it. And I bel I didn't believe in myself, for so long. But when a professor said that, I remember it was the first semester there, it was an English class, and the professor said that I was the bright star of the class or something like that. Maybe they say that all the time, but when you don't hear praise, and I heard that, and I read it to my kids, and they were all, "Mommy's a star," and I felt it made me feel so happy. Professors have this. Now that I teach, now that I'm an instructor, I always watch what I say because the littlest thing can affect someone, and I want to affect people in good ways. I wanted to help people. I wanted to get the degrees that would enable me to help people as I wish that I myself had been helped. Um, I, I think I could have gotten my degrees and never looked back and pretended that I didn't live in a trailer on food stamps, and, you know, or I could have looked at that as I did. I looked at that and I thought, so much that happened was really wrong. And I remembered how I would cry and how I thought I couldn't get in college. And I want I want to reach and help people because it's hard. There's they talk about gatekeeping, about there's so many things they don't tell you. Um and they just either they think people are supposed to just know it because, sometimes I think that it used to be people were all, 18-year-olds go into college from high school and they have trust funds or they have a college fund and they have family and people and everyone supporting them and their guidance counselors in high school. But that's not how it is a lot. It was not like that for me. It wasn't like it for my kids. And how I guess I would it was mentors, finding people in academia, your professors or advisors or someone who can and who could tell you the things that you're afraid to ask. You're afraid to ask, oh, what happens if financial aid is saying that, I can't get this or I need more? What happens here? Or, you know, there's people who can tell you how to do this, tell you how to give you guidance on writing an email to an instructor, calling financial aid, if you ever have to contact a department chair, how to do it. Um, I didn't know anything like that. And when I first started, a lot of professors and people in academia are happy to be mentors. We want to help people because either we experienced it ourselves or we have empathy and understand how it is for people. And I was afraid to. to actively seek mentors because I thought, who am I? I'm asking someone and they're important and they don't have time. And, you know, when I first found people to help, yeah, and they did. They were willing to sit down with me or talk on the phone. Or when I was in grad school, I was really, really sick, and the department chair and her husband drove an hour to my trailer to bring us groceries because, just you'll find wonderful people in academia. I'm not saying you're not going to find them other places because you will, but it feels good to help. And in my experience, a lot of professors and people in academia, department chairs were willing to help. And when I started accepting that, it seemed like it just helped in all the ways. It helped me understand how to navigate academia, how to do this. It explained everything for me. And I want to also, when you know people, whether they're your mentors or friends in academia, friends who are also, working towards earning their degrees, they'll understand those times when you're up at 3 in the morning and you need to finish an assignment and you're sick or your kids are sick and you're trying desperately to do this. They'll understand that stress. You know, other people who aren't in academia might say, "Oh, if it's making you this miserable, just drop out. Just drop out." I think if you've been in academia, you understand that even though it's difficult, even though sometimes you legit can't stand it, you walk around and saying, I hate this. Why am I doing this? But that doesn't mean you also don't love it. I loved it, even when it was hard and it made me cry and it felt like I couldn't do it. People supported me and told me I could.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, my experience too. I would say that I was college minded growing up just because my mother really instilled education and the importance of education in my life. So I really did have that benefit. So I would say from middle school almost, my mother would find like little bits and pieces from a local library or her friends who had children who went to university kind of give me bits and pieces of knowledge. But
Hmm.
I didn't have a network. I had really no mentors in high school. And
Hmm.
so when I got to college, um, I knew and this is, thank goodness I thought of this. I knew that I had to hustle and get to know people, network, because although I didn't have grad school in mind, I knew that at the end of the day, I needed a job. And
Hmm.
I knew I needed a good resume, letter of recommendations, that kind of thing. So I knew going in, I needed to build relationships.
Right.
However, at that time, I had no idea what mentorship was.
Hmm.
I just thought I could get to know someone kind of thought
Yeah.
process. I didn't have the
Hmm.
words for it. And again, like you said before, you don't know the questions to ask, especially if you didn't have a network and or if you were privileged to know this information going in. So I really didn't have much knowledge, but thankfully, what I did do is twice a semester, I would always go to our career counseling center. And the director noticed that I was a bit lost. I didn't know what questions to ask. I would
Hmm.
ask her kind of empty questions that really didn't have a rhyme or reason. I was just thinking it. So she actually took me under her wing. And at
Hmm.
first, it wasn't a mentorship per se. It was more her encouraging me to do this and that. And slowly it evolved very organically to a
Hmm.
mentorship, to a sponsorship, meaning that she mentored, provided guidance, but then sponsorship is putting one's name out there so that your mentee could, receive or achieve something. So I always tell my students, don't expect a mentor to be a sponsor or a sponsor to be a mentor, but really do utilize your time to network.
Hmm.
And I wanted to ask you a follow-up question, especially since you are a distance online learner. How
Hmm.
did you gain mentors? Like, how, did you seek it? Did professors and or staff, faculty, community members come to you? Like, how did that happen?
I was scared to seek it. I had a really inferiority complex, and I was, I was like socially anxious, and I felt like I didn't it took me a long time to feel that I belonged in academia, even as I was enjoying it and benefiting from it. I felt like I didn't belong. Like if people got to know me well, they would say, "Hey, what is she doing here?" She's, that woman, with her kids, and so I think that I think that the mentors that I first had to approach me. I must have looked lost and scared. I must have, because I did go to campus sometime, and they approached me. I remember Claire Celine, when she was the department chair of women's studies, she, called me on the phone to talk to me about going to grad school. And then, Anna Louise Keating in women's studies and multicultural women and gender studies. When I was in grad school, people would just say, come on in, I'll loan you a book, let's talk about this. And it was so giving because now I know it even better, but I knew they were busy. Everyone's busy in academia, but people were willing to, everyone from the secretaries in the departments were willing to just talk to me and say this because everyone knows things. And so I didn't seek it out, but once I started getting more used to it, I, mentors can become friends. My mentors became my friends. People help you. Well, my mentors helped me get my job as managing editor of the book series. Um, and it turned out to be a job I love. When I started my Bachelor of General Studies degree, I never thought I want to write, I want to be an editor, I'm going to be able to be one of those people that can, developmental editing and help others write really well. I my my mentors helped me see that, oh, you're really good at this. You should try this. Are you interested in this? And it, I believed in what they were saying. If they said I was good at something, I thought, well, they must be right because they're professors and they know things. And so it took years and years. It was a long process before I started thinking, well, they're right. I really am amazing. I really am a good editor. I'm good at teaching. I'm good at this. And it felt so awkward to not only say it but think it. It took a long time. But yeah, I didn't seek people out. I guess if I were going to advise people, give anyone any suggestions, I would say try to be attuned, pay attention to people that you kind of like. It starts with liking someone. You can't have a mentor who you don't like. If you really like someone, if you're instructing, it, it's always feels nice to have someone say, "Oh, I really like that chapter you assigned, or this or that, or can I ask you this?" As I probably already said, it feels nice to help. So I would encourage people to keep their eyes open for possible mentors because it sometimes takes a while, and sometimes you'll think, "Oh, that person will make a great mentor," and then you'll realize it's not a great fit. So be on the lookout for people who you'll know they're mentors now, but project yourself like 10 years in the future and imagine that you're friends. And that's, that having, that's what I would recommend. Look at people that you really admire, and, you know, those are the best mentors.
Yeah, and then also mentors could open a person up to their network, right? So it could just
Yes.
your own personal network could just evolve and be that much bigger without meeting everyone just one on one directly, which could be very exhausting and almost impractical to think
Right.
one could do. Um, and I liked your what you said regarding mentors being able to provide knowledge on what your values and your what you're good at, point out what you're
Mhm.
good at. Because for instance, for me, I always had this personality of kind of like being the mothering type
Mhm.
and providing advice. And like I said, I came in pre-med wanting to be a surgeon, a neurosurgeon. And luckily, I want to say it was a biology professor and my biology 101. I wasn't doing well at all in his class. But I told him what my aspirations were, and he connected me with the psychology department who were doing research. And I did research for a semester or two, and I realized, and it had to do with uh, putting electrodes in a mice brains, and I couldn't do it. And
Yeah.
both professors were like, "Well, if you can't do that to a mouse, I doubt you could do it to a human." And just those kind of conversations, you have one direction that you're thinking you want to go when you're an
Mm-hmm.
undergrad. And like we were saying before, with your knowledge, your knowledge grows so much. And with that, the possibilities open up too, to sometimes it becomes endless. And
Yes.
I do very much value your point where you were saying that your mentors um, allows you to acknowledge what your skills were, and then allow you to create your own path, or they're able to guide you towards a path
Mm-hmm.
where you using your verbiage, you thrived. And that validation is so important.
Yeah.
It is so important for someone to succeed. There's a researcher. Her name is Dr. Laura Rendon, and she speaks about validation theory, where students need to be validated, welcome to the university environment, especially if they're
Mm-hmm.
first gen, not the I quote unquote, I don't like it, but the typical traditional student um, who may have a lineage of people who went to
Right.
college. And she talks about a student in that setting needing to be welcomed, or most of those students who are not welcomed typically drop out within the first semester.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So especially for our distance learners, um, it's important for ourselves to develop, or for TWU to develop an inclusive, welcoming environment. But I would say also, and I don't know if you would agree with me, that students, any student, but online learners as well, should or need to self advocate for themselves, to be
Mm-hmm.
their own agency, to be able to um, kind of know that imposter syndrome's there and
Right.
not deny it, but utilize it to hopefully then build the skills to communicate with faculty and or individuals who can serve as mentors, um, to then gain access to that hidden knowledge that some
Mm-hmm.
people come equipped with to a university setting, which I could say that both of us did not have. So I thank you for that. Just valuing not only the relationships built during your undergrad program, but also sustaining those relationships and allowing those relationships to build for not only, like you were saying, for you to gain knowledge from them and insight into your own capabilities, but also in the future, having that relationship, that collaborative relationships that you
Mm-hmm.
could have in the future. So it's not just giving, giving, taking, but it could be truly a collaborative relationship
Yes.
in the future.
Yes. Yeah, it's kind of it's amazing the way that works out, that it becomes, the relationship will evolve and it will become it'll become a two-way thing, not just a linear thing where the mentor is telling you this information and you're taking it in. It'll be collaborative. You'll you yeah, as you said, it's good to acknowledge imposter syndrome. See, I didn't have that. I didn't have a lot of the words when I started, and I think it's good that students know a couple things, that imposter syndrome is real and accepting it and then dealing with it, that college is hard, that there's time, all these things. Forgot where I was going, but but yeah, we just it becomes mentorship becomes collaborative, as you said. It becomes a two-way friendship, and it, what you said a little while ago, expanding networks, having interlinking networks, because when you, the more people, it's like a net, everyone, a network net. We're all connected, and we can help and they can help, and the more you know, and it's just, I think if students, online online learning does could make it complicated because you're not seeing people face to face, and there's a different dynamic, online or face to face. But as an instructor, I just instruct on the side, but I really like my students. I really like them, and I get very invested in them succeeding. And I if students have a question, I always tell them I could be wrong. I, as your instructor, could be wrong. Any of these professors could be wrong. Don't automatically think that you're always wrong. I mean, and I try to explain to them there's ways to speak up and get ask questions. And I always tell my students, just let me know. Don't you're not bugging me. Just email me. Don't feel like you have to be nervous. I imagine they still are, but I want to help, and I think a lot of instructors are, especially the ones that I worked as my mentors. They wanted to help. They see students, and you want. So I think everyone is busy, right? And online makes can be an extra barrier, but reach out. I would think, and if an instructor doesn't answer you or doesn't seem to want to, engage in a just dialogue, then find another one, because there's people who can. I mean, I'm not saying some people are terribly busy and we lose emails and that kind of stuff happens, but keep trying. Don't give up. Don't think, oh, I no one wants to help me. Just find someone who does, because they are there.
Mhm.
You know, I know that you want to help people. That's why you're in this, and I sometimes I like your job. I like what you're doing because I think it's really needed. We need to make students know that they do belong. They do belong, if whatever age they are, whatever, social identities, wherever they are in their life, the university, TWU can meet you there and then help you, expand your life, help you learn more. I I went into getting my Bachelor of General Studies degree, having absolutely no idea what it would turn into, what this whole, I would like to say adventure, but sometimes an adventure is hard and sad and frustrating and all those things. But it was really amazing when I look at where I was then, and now I'm not in minimum wage jobs where people are yelling at you and treating you poorly, and I have colleagues who I respect and like working with, and I can work with authors and student authors. I guess I want to plug the book series. We're looking for works from students. We value your work. I don't, you could be an undergrad, you could be in graduate school, but if you have a story to tell, get a hold of me. Um, I just want to help. I want to help. I don't want to have so many. I know how hard it is, and I see people drop out, and I w- sometimes I think they wouldn't just disappear from class and then drop out of TWU. If we can keep that from happening, because life is hard. We're living in really hard times now, and I think this is as hard as it is. I think it's really good to be in academia now because we can help ourselves and we can help others.
Very much so. I believe that we're
Yeah.
like-minded in terms of being in academia is like our way of creating social justice and giving back to
Hmm.
the world what perhaps we didn't receive, what we want to build more for our students to be there. And I love that our conversation focused on mentorship. That is so, I mean, it's pivotal to have a mentor. So
Hmm.
I thank you so much for talking about that. Um, but let me let me ask, is there anything else that you would want to educate our students on given your experiences?
Don't I know this sounds like another cliche, but don't give up, because even when I think if you go in understanding, really understanding that it's going to be hard and it's going to be stressful, and you're not alone. Maybe other people don't talk about when they're up at 3 in the morning crying about, a class, but it happens. And I think we should talk about it so that no one thinks, oh, it's just me. I would say don't give up. I would say that the Bachelor of General Studies lets you explore different things. So if you're not sure, or even if you are sure, if you think I know exactly what I'm going to do and this is my path to get there, keep an open mind because it could change. I never thought I'd be a book editor, but I love it, and keep an open mind, find friends and mentors in academia to help and support you, and that you can help and support them, because you will support your mentors too. There'll be times when, it will be collaborative, reciprocal.
Hmm.
So
Wonderful. I
yeah.
loved our time together.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you so
you.
much for your time, your dedication to our students, and just your energy. When we met
Mm.
previously, I was thinking to myself, "Oh my goodness, you'd be perfect to
Oh, thank you.
represent an alumna for our students to understand your pathway and provide guidance and support." So I thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, you're
Um,
very welcome. I'm happy to do this.
Oh, wonderful. All right. Well, take care. And I hope all of our students gained a wealth of information from today. Thank
Me
you.
too. Thank you.